At 05:15 hours on April 6, 1941, German artillery opened fire on Yugoslav positions along the Austrian-Yugoslav border. Simultaneously, Luftwaffe bombers struck Belgrade in what would become one of the most destructive bombing raids of the early war. Operation 25. The invasion of Yugoslavia had begun. The operation employed 24 divisions, 200 aircraft, and over 500,000 troops attacking from Austria, Bulgaria, and Romania. The force was overwhelming for a country that had been at peace 10 days earlier. But Germany was not invading Yugoslavia for territory or strategic position. Germany was invading for bauxite. Bauxite is aluminum or reddish-brown rock containing 40% to 60% aluminum oxide. It is the only economically viable source of aluminum metal. Aluminum is extracted from bauxite through energy-intensive process requiring approximately 15 kilowatt-hours of electricity per kilogram of aluminum produced. The extraction process, Bayer process for refining bauxite into aluminum oxide, followed by Hall-Héroult process for electrolytic reduction to aluminum metal, was developed in 1880s and remained essentially unchanged through World War II. Aluminum's strategic importance came from aircraft production. Aircraft required aluminum for structural airframes because aluminum offered high strength-to-weight ratio compared to steel or wood. A fighter aircraft like Messerschmitt Bf 109 required approximately 1,500 kilograms of aluminum. A bomber like Junkers Ju-88 required approximately 4,000 kilograms. Producing 1,000 fighters required 1,500 tons of aluminum metal, which required approximately 6,000 tons of bauxite ore. Germany's aircraft production goals in 1940 to 1941 required approximately 300,000 tons of aluminum annually, which required approximately 1.2 million tons of bauxite. Germany's domestic bauxite production was negligible. German territory contained minimal bauxite deposits. Germany had to import bauxite from foreign sources or use domestic aluminum scrap recycled from obsolete aircraft and industrial waste. The scrap provided approximately 20% of German aluminum supply. The remaining 80% required imported bauxite. Germany's primary bauxite sources in 1940 were Hungary, Yugoslavia, southern France, and Italy. Hungarian mines produced approximately 900,000 tons annually. Yugoslav mines produced approximately 600,000 tons. French mines in southern France, controlled by Vichy France after June 1940, produced approximately 700,000 tons. Italian mines produced approximately 500,000 tons. Total available bauxite from these sources was approximately 2.7 million tons annually, more than Germany's requirements, but with minimal surplus for stockpiling or unexpected shortfalls. Yugoslav bauxite came primarily from mines in Herzegovina and Dalmatia regions along the Adriatic coast. The mines at Mostar, Durnish, and other locations produced high-grade bauxite with 50% to 60% aluminum oxide content. The ore quality was excellent, among the best in Europe. German metallurgists preferred Yugoslav bauxite because high aluminum content meant more efficient processing and better metal yields. Yugoslav ore produced approximately 25% more aluminum per ton than lower-grade Hungarian ore. Germany's aluminum industry in 1940 operated approximately 15 large smelters located primarily in central and southern Germany. The smelters consumed enormous amounts of electricity, approximately 450 megawatts continuously. The electrical demand competed with other war industries, but was prioritized because aluminum was essential for aircraft production. The smelters processed bauxite continuously, producing aluminum metal that was shipped to aircraft manufacturers and other consumers. Yugoslavia's relationship with Germany was complex in 1940-1941. Yugoslav government under Prince Paul had pursued neutrality while accommodating German economic demands. Yugoslavia signed trade agreements with Germany providing bauxite exports in exchange for German manufactured goods and military equipment. The arrangement was economically beneficial for Yugoslavia. German payments provided foreign currency, and German goods supplied Yugoslav industries. But the arrangement made Yugoslavia economically dependent on Germany and politically vulnerable to German pressure. In March 1941, German pressure on Yugoslavia intensified. Germany demanded Yugoslavia join the Tripartite Pact, the military alliance of Germany, Italy, and Japan. Joining would commit Yugoslavia to supporting Axis objectives and potentially providing military forces for German operations. Yugoslav government under Prince Paul reluctantly agreed. On March 25, 1941, Yugoslavia signed the Tripartite Pact in Vienna. The agreement seemed to secure German access to Yugoslav bauxite and other resources indefinitely. The agreement was immediately unpopular in Yugoslavia. Public protests erupted in Belgrade. Military officers opposed alignment with Germany. On March 27, 1941, 2 days after signing a military coup, overthrew Prince Paul's government. The new government, led by General Dusan Simovic, denounced the Tripartite Pact and declared Yugoslavia would pursue independent foreign policy. The declaration did not explicitly state hostility to Germany, but implied Yugoslavia might align with Britain. Hitler's reaction was immediate and furious. He viewed the coup as betrayal and personal insult. Within hours of learning about the coup, Hitler ordered invasion of Yugoslavia. The order was issued March 27th. The invasion would begin approximately 10 days later, remarkably fast given the scale of operation required. The speed reflected both Hitler's anger and German military's assessment that Yugoslavia could not be allowed to exit German economic sphere. German military planners calculated strategic implications. Yugoslav bauxite was approximately 20% of Germany's bauxite supply. Losing Yugoslav bauxite would reduce German aluminum production by 20%. Aircraft production would decline proportionally. In 1941, Germany was producing approximately 900 aircraft monthly. A 20% reduction would cost approximately 180 aircraft monthly. Over 6 months, the loss would total approximately 1,000 aircraft, equivalent to more than half the Luftwaffe's entire fighter force. The calculation was complicated by timing. Germany was preparing Operation Barbarossa invasion of Soviet Union, scheduled for May 1941. Barbarossa required maximum military strength, including air superiority. Losing 20% of aircraft production would weaken Luftwaffe significantly by time Barbarossa began. Additionally, if Yugoslavia aligned with Britain, Royal Air Force might use Yugoslav airfields to attack Romanian oil fields at Ploiești, Germany's primary petroleum source. The strategic risks were unacceptable. German planners had 2 options. First, accept Yugoslav independence and seek alternative bauxite sources. This would require increasing Hungarian production or developing other sources, both requiring time Germany did not have. Second, invade Yugoslavia, occupy the country, secure bauxite mines, and eliminate threat of Yugoslav alignment with Britain. The invasion would delay Barbarossa by several weeks, but would secure bauxite supply permanently. Hitler chose invasion. Operation 25 was planned in 8 days, extraordinarily rapid, for operation involving 24 divisions attacking from 3 directions. The plan called for simultaneous attacks from Austria, Bulgaria, and Romania. Panzer divisions would advance from Bulgaria toward Belgrade and Skopje. Mountain divisions would advance from Austria toward Zagreb and the Dalmatian coast, securing bauxite mining regions quickly. Infantry divisions would occupy interior regions. Luftwaffe would provide air support and conduct strategic bombing of Belgrade. The operation began April 6th as scheduled. German forces advanced rapidly. Yugoslav military resistance was ineffective. Yugoslav army was poorly equipped, poorly trained, and deployed to defend against potential Italian invasion from the west rather than German invasion from north and east. Yugoslav command structure collapsed within days. German forces reached Belgrade April 12th. Organized Yugoslav resistance ended April 17th. The entire campaign lasted 11 days shorter than German planning had estimated. German forces secured bauxite mining regions immediately. Mountain divisions advancing from Austria reached Dalmatian coast by April 10th. Mines at Mostar and Drniš were captured intact. Yugoslav forces had not destroyed mining infrastructure. German engineers assessed the mines within days. Production could resume immediately under German supervision. By May 1941, Yugoslav bauxite was flowing to German smelters exactly as before the coup. The human cost of the invasion was substantial for Yugoslavia. German bombing of Belgrade killed approximately 2,000 civilians. The invasion and subsequent occupation killed thousands more. The country was dismembered. Germany annexed northern Slovenia. Italy occupied Dalmatia and Montenegro. Bulgaria occupied Macedonia. Hungary occupied portions of Vojvodina. The remaining territory became puppet states, independent state of Croatia under Ustaše regime and Rump Serbia under German military administration. The economic benefit to Germany was immediate. Yugoslav bauxite production under German control reached approximately 650,000 tons in 1941, slightly higher than 1940 production. The increase came from German management pushing production higher, using forced labor and extended work hours. The bauxite was transported to Germany by rail through Austria or by ship from Dalmatian ports to Italian ports, then overland to Germany. The transportation routes were longer than pre-war routes through Yugoslav railways, but the bauxite reached German smelters reliably. German aircraft production in 1941 benefited directly. Monthly production increased from approximately 900 aircraft in March 1941 to approximately 1,200 aircraft by December 1941. The increase reflected multiple factors: expansion of production facilities, improved manufacturing efficiency, increased shift hours. But the increase would not have been possible without adequate aluminum supply. Yugoslav bauxite was approximately 20% of that supply. Without Yugoslav bauxite, production would have been constrained to approximately 1,000 aircraft monthly. The strategic consequence was that Luftwaffe's strength in 1941 was higher than it would have been if Yugoslav bauxite had been lost. Luftwaffe deployed approximately 2,800 aircraft to support Operation Barbarossa in June 1941. If aircraft production had been reduced by 20% from April through June, Luftwaffe might have had approximately 200 fewer aircraft available for Barbarossa. The reduction would not have prevented Barbarossa, but would have weakened German air superiority in opening phases of campaign. The delay to Operation Barbarossa was real, but probably not decisive. The invasion of Yugoslavia required 2 weeks. Redeploying forces from Yugoslavia to positions for Barbarossa required 3 weeks. Total delay was approximately 5 weeks. Barbarossa began June 22nd, instead of mid-May as originally planned. German generals later claimed the delay caused Barbarossa to fail by preventing German forces from capturing Moscow before winter. The claim was self-serving rationalization. Barbarossa failed primarily due to strategic and logistical problems unrelated to timing. But the delay was not cost-free. 5 weeks of good weather in Western Soviet Union were consumed by Yugoslav operation. German forces beginning Barbarossa in mid-May would have had 5 additional weeks before autumn rains and winter conditions began. Whether this would have changed Barbarossa's outcome is speculative, but 5 additional weeks of favorable weather could have allowed German forces to advance further before winter halted operations. Hitler's decision calculus weighed these factors. Delay Barbarossa 5 weeks and secure bauxite supply, or proceed with Barbarossa on schedule and accept 20% reduction in aircraft production and risk of Yugoslav alignment with Britain. Hitler chose to secure bauxite. The decision reflected German dependence on specific resources from specific geographic sources. Germany could not substitute for Yugoslav bauxite quickly. Delaying Barbarossa 5 weeks seemed acceptable cost for securing essential resource. Yugoslav bauxite production under German occupation continued through 1944. Production levels varied approximately 650,000 tons in 1941, 700,000 tons in 1942, 600,000 tons in 1943, 400,000 tons in 1944. The decline in 1944 reflected partisan warfare, disrupting mining operations and Allied bombing, damaging transportation routes. Yugoslav partisans under Josip Broz Tito attacked mines repeatedly. German security forces guarded mines but could not prevent all attacks. Production continued, but it reduced efficiency. The labor force at Yugoslav mines under German control included both voluntary Yugoslav workers and forced laborers. German occupation authorities required mines to maintain production. Workers who refused were subject to punishment or deportation to forced labor camps. The working conditions deteriorated under German control: longer hours, reduced safety measures, inadequate food, accidents increased. Worker deaths from accidents and disease were substantial but not systematically documented. Allied intelligence recognized Yugoslav bauxite's importance to German aluminum production. British and American planners discussed attacking Yugoslav mines to reduce German aircraft production. The plans were never executed because Yugoslav mines were beyond range of Allied bombers based in Britain or North Africa until 1943. By 1944, when Allied bombers could reach Yugoslav targets, Allied strategy focused on other priorities: oil production, transportation infrastructure, German cities. Yugoslav bauxite mines were never bombed systematically. Yugoslav partisans conducted sabotage operations against bauxite mines. Tito's forces attacked mines, destroyed equipment, killed German supervisors. The attacks disrupted production temporarily but rarely caused permanent damage. Germans repaired damage and resumed production within weeks or months. Partisan operations were nuisance rather than strategic threat to German bauxite supply. The operations did force Germans to allocate security forces to guard mines forces that could have been used elsewhere. The comparative advantage of Yugoslav bauxite compared to other German sources was significant. Yugoslav ore averaged 55% aluminum oxide content. Hungarian ore averaged 45% aluminum oxide. French ore averaged 50% aluminum oxide. Italian ore averaged 40% aluminum oxide. The higher Yugoslav ore quality meant less bauxite was needed to produce equivalent aluminum. German smelters processing Yugoslav ore were approximately 20% more efficient than smelters processing lower-grade ores. The efficiency advantage made Yugoslav bauxite more valuable per ton than other sources. German aluminum production peaked in 1944 at approximately 250,000 tons, slightly below 1941 levels, but sustained despite Allied bombing. The production level depended on adequate bauxite supply. Yugoslav bauxite contributed approximately 15% to 20% of supply even in 1944 despite partisan attacks and reduced production. The contribution was significant enough that losing Yugoslav bauxite entirely would have forced production cuts. The strategic lesson from Yugoslav invasion was that resource access determined military operations. Germany invaded Yugoslavia partly for political reasons, punishing coup, preventing British alignment, but substantially for economic reasons, securing bauxite supply. The decision to delay Barbarossa to secure bauxite demonstrated that resources were prioritized over timing. Germany would not proceed with major operation while facing resource shortage that could be eliminated by smaller operation. Post-war analysis examined whether invading Yugoslavia was strategically sound. Arguments in favor noted that securing bauxite was essential and delaying Barbarossa 5 weeks was acceptable cost. Arguments against noted that Barbarossa's failure was partially attributed to late start date and that diplomatic pressure might have secured Yugoslav cooperation without invasion. The counterfactual is unprovable, but the analysis showed resource considerations shaped strategic decisions directly. Yugoslav losses from the invasion and occupation were catastrophic. Approximately 1 million Yugoslav citizens died during World War II, approximately 6% of population. Deaths came from combat, German reprisals, Ustaše genocide, partisan warfare, starvation, and disease. The country was devastated economically, infrastructure was destroyed, industrial production collapsed, Recovery took decades. The bauxite mines that Germany invaded to secure were only a small part of Yugoslav suffering, but were direct cause of invasion that began the suffering. German occupation policy toward Yugoslav bauxite reflected resource priorities. Mines were placed under direct German administration. German engineers supervised production. Output was allocated entirely to German war economy. None was available for Yugoslav domestic use. Workers were paid minimal wages in occupation currency worth less than pre-war currency. The occupation was exploitative extraction designed to maximize German benefit regardless of Yugoslav cost. The post-war fate of Yugoslav bauxite industry illustrated how resources shaped political outcomes. After liberation in 1945, Yugoslav communist government nationalized mines. Production resumed under Yugoslav control. Bauxite became major export-earning foreign currency for Yugoslav reconstruction. The industry that Germany invaded to control became foundation of post-war Yugoslav aluminum industry and significant economic asset. The comparative assessment of bauxite's strategic importance showed that aluminum was as critical as oil for modern warfare. Oil-powered vehicles and aircraft. Aluminum built aircraft. Both were essential and both required secure supplies. Germany's strategic vulnerability was dependence on foreign sources for both. Romania provided oil. Yugoslavia, Hungary, and France provided bauxite. Losing access to either would cripple German military capability. The invasion of Yugoslavia demonstrated how far Germany would go to protect resource access. The timing coincidence was striking. Germany invaded Yugoslavia in April 1941 for bauxite. Germany invaded Soviet Union in June 1941. Partly for oil, Ukrainian and Caucasian oil fields were major objectives. Both invasions were driven substantially by resource imperatives. Territory, ideology, and strategic considerations mattered, but resources were fundamental. Modern mechanized warfare consumed enormous quantities of specific materials. Controlling sources of those materials determined military capability. The metallurgical requirements for aircraft production explained aluminum's importance. Steel was too heavy for aircraft structures. Steel airframes would be too heavy to fly efficiently. Wood was too weak and vulnerable to combat damage. Aluminum offered optimal combination of strength, weight, and workability. Alternative materials existed: magnesium alloys, titanium, but were more expensive and difficult to manufacture. Aluminum was practical choice for mass production of aircraft. Controlling aluminum supply meant controlling aircraft production capacity. The electrical requirements for aluminum production created additional strategic constraint. Producing 300,000 tons of aluminum annually required approximately 4.5 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity, roughly 3% of German electrical generation capacity. The electrical demand competed with other war industries. German electrical capacity was finite. Expanding aluminum production meant reducing production elsewhere or building additional generating capacity. German decisions about aluminum production were constrained by electrical availability as much as bauxite availability. The logistical challenge of transporting bauxite from Yugoslavia to Germany was substantial but manageable. Rail transport from Dalmatian coast to Austria required approximately 500 kilometers. The rail capacity was adequate for 600,000 tons annually. Alternative route by ship from Dalmatian ports to Italian ports, then rail to Germany, was longer, but avoided transit through potentially hostile Hungarian territory if Hungary's loyalty became questionable. German logistics managed Yugoslav bauxite transport efficiently throughout occupation. The German assessment of Yugoslav bauxite's value was documented in post-war interrogations of German economic planners. Albert Speer, Reich Minister of Armaments, stated Yugoslav bauxite was critical resource for German aircraft production. Hermann Göring, Luftwaffe commander, stated securing Yugoslav bauxite was essential precondition for maintaining Luftwaffe strength. The assessments confirmed that German leadership viewed Yugoslav bauxite as strategic necessity worth military operation to secure. The Allied failure to recognize Yugoslav bauxite's strategic importance until late in war reflected intelligence gap. Allied planners focused on German oil supplies as critical vulnerability. Oil was obvious target visible, concentrated, vulnerable to bombing. Bauxite was less obvious, mining was dispersed, or processing occurred in Germany beyond Allied bomber range until 1943. Finished aluminum production was difficult to target effectively. Allied strategic bombing focused on oil, cities, and transportation. Bauxite received minimal attention. The counterfactual where Allied bombers systematically attacked Yugoslav bauxite mines from 1943 onward suggests German aircraft production would have been constrained more severely than actually occurred. If Yugoslav bauxite had been eliminated in 1943, German aluminum production would have declined approximately 20. Aircraft production would have declined proportionally. Luftwaffe's strength in 1944 to 1945 would have been reduced. The strategic impact might have been substantial, but Allied planners never prioritized bauxite as target system. The final strategic assessment was that Yugoslavia's bauxite determined the country's fate. The coup of March 27, 1941, threatened German resource access. Germany responded with overwhelming military force launched within 10 days. The country was conquered in 11 days, dismembered, and occupied for 4 years. Over 1 million Yugoslav citizens died. The cause was not ideology or strategic geography, but control of aluminum ore deposits that Germany needed for aircraft production. This was the Bauxite War, the invasion of Yugoslavia driven by resource imperatives as much as political retaliation. The strategic calculation that 600,000 tons of bauxite annually was worth delaying Operation Barbarossa 5 weeks and deploying 24 divisions to conquer Balkan country. The mines at Mostar and Durranish that produced or essential for German aircraft aluminum. The mineral that made Messerschmitt fighters and Junkers bombers possible. The resource dependence that shaped invasion timing and determined one country's fate. The aluminum ore that Germany could not do without and would invade to secure regardless of diplomatic consequences or strategic delay. The geological accident that placed high-grade bauxite deposits in Yugoslavia and made that country strategically valuable to Germany beyond its size or military strength. The bauxite that sustained Luftwaffe production for 4 years of occupation until Yugoslav partisans and Allied victory ended German control. The mineral war where resources mattered more than borders and where securing aluminum ore justified military campaign that delayed invasion of Soviet Union and contributed to cascade of events that ultimately led to German defeat.